Hello guys, welcome back to C Fashion Academy. Today I'll be teaching us how to cut a pencil skirt. But before we start that, please I want you to make sure you subscribe to this channel and make sure you like this video, because the more you like this video, the more others get to see this video. Okay, so let's start with the measurements. We have our measurements here. We have the round waist, which is 30 inches. We have the hip line, which is 7 inches. We have the round hip, which is 38 inches, and we have the skirt length, which is 18 inches. Okay, so in order to cut this pencil skirt, first thing we do is to fold our fabric. Now, in order to fold your fabric, you usually consider the highest circumference, which in this case the highest circumference here is the hip, which is 38 inches. Now divide the 38 inches by 4. What you are going to get is 9.5. Now you add extra 5 inches to the 9.5, which is going to give us 14.5. This 14.5 is the material you are going to fold. Okay, look at what I mean. This is 9.5, as you can see. This is 9.5. Mark 9.5 here, and also mark 9.5 here. Now add this 5 inches. Now this 5 inches is for both the zip allowance and the body allowance. You put this 5 inches so that at the end of the day you will not start looking for allowance to use. Okay, look at it. So after you finish marking out these 5 inches, next thing you need to do is to do what? Make sure you fold through that 5 inches. Okay, fold your material into 2. Okay, after folding your material into 2, the next thing you are going to do is to mark out your measurement points. Now measurement points are from waist to the hip line, and from waist to the skirt length. Okay, let's mark out our measurement points. As you guys can see, here is the waistline. From waistline to the hip line. Hip line is 7 inches. Okay, mark it out. Make sure you mark out the line 2 times. The reason why we are marking it out 2 times is so that at the end of the day we'll be able to achieve a straight line. Okay, after marking out the waistline, after marking out the hip line, next thing to do is to do mark out the skirt length. In order to mark out the skirt length, our skirt length is 18 inches. Okay, mark out 18 inches and add extra 2 inches allowance, either for the hemming or for the lining. Do the same thing here in order to achieve a straight line. 18 inches and 2 inches. Okay, now take your rule and connect. Okay, after you are done connecting, okay, now let's label it. This is the waistline, this is the hip line, and this is the skirt length. This is the allowance. Okay, now after you are done doing this, next thing you are going to do is to do impute the body circumference. Now we start from waist. We now do 30 divided by 4, which is going to give us 7.5. Now mark out the 7.5 from the waistline. Mark out the 7.5. Now add 2 inches extra body allowance. This 2 inches is for the body allowance. You can add more than 2 inches depending on the kind of allowance you need. Okay, now after that, this is the our round hip. Now impute the round hip circumference, which is 38 divided by 4, which is going to give us 9.5. Okay, now mark out 9.5. Also add the same 2 inches allowance. Please, the allowance must be uniform. Okay, now next thing we are going to do is to do mark out the circumference of the down part. Now look at it very well. See how I'm going to get it. As you can see on this particular measurement, we don't have the circumference of the down part. Now you can always use this method I'm using now to get the circumference. Now also, as you guys can see the hip here, what we have at the hip now. Please, I want you to take whatever you have at the hip here. As you can see, the total we have at the hip here is 11.5. Now take it down to the skirt length, 11.5. Now mark it out here. This is the same thing as we have at the hip here. Now next thing you are going to do is to do as you can see, from here step back with either 1 or 1.5 inch, depending on how fitted you want that skirt to be at the thigh region. Okay, now I'm stepping in by 1.5 inch. Now I also do the same thing at the down part here. Okay, this thing now means that we have our point here, have our point here, and have our point here. So next thing we are going to do is to now do connect them together. Now you can either connect them with your French curve or your CORSET or you can also connect them with what? Freehand, or even with a stretch rule. Anything you want to, anything you have at the moment. Okay, for the sake of this particular tutorial, I'm going to teach us how to connect it with a stretch rule. Okay, take your stretch rule and connect it like this. Okay, as you guys can see, after connecting it, you see that here is too sharp, very sharp. So all you need to do is to do was silence the word sharpness. In order to silence the sharpness, do it like this. Okay, as you guys can see, we've silenced the word sharpness of that particular point. So this is how to really what? Construct our pencil skate. So the next thing remaining now is to do what? Mark out our dart. So in order to get your dart width, what you are going to do is to do what? Divide your waist by 8. Okay, so after dividing the waist by 8, what we get is 3 3/4. So mark out your what? 3 3/4 as your what? Dart width. Please, this is how to get your dart. You get it by what? Dividing your waist by 8. Okay. Now, in order to get the dart depth, now the dart depth, the simplest way to get the dart depth is what? That depth is usually situated at what? 2 inches above the what? Hip line. Look at it. 2 inches above the hip line. Are you seeing it? Okay. So what next thing we are going to do is to do what? Take our rule and what? Mark out the dart. Are you seeing it? Okay. So next thing we are going to do is to do what? Fully form the dart. In order for you to fully form the dart, place it like this. From this particular dart, from here mark out 1/2 inch, and also from here mark out 1/2 inch. So we now have this point and this point. Next thing you are going to do is to do what? Connect this point to the what? Where the dart ends, and also connect the other one to where the dart ends. Okay, then the final thing we are going to do on this particular skate is to apply what we call the what? The waist effect. That is what I actually call it. Now, if you guys notice, sometimes when you wear a skate, you notice that the waist region is kind of folding, always folding. So in order to avoid that, next thing we are going to do is to do what? Apply what we call the what? Waist effect. So in order to apply it, from this very point, step down by what? Are you seeing it? From this very point, step down by what? 1 inch. Okay, as you can see the 1 inch now. Now take your rule and do what? Connect it to the what? This part of the waist. Okay, let's do it. Please, we are going to cut this thing off, but not now. We are going to cut it off after we finish cutting for the what? Back. Okay, now we are done cutting the front part. Next thing we are going to do is to do what? Use our scissors and cut it out. Okay, next thing you are going to do now is to do what? Make sure you notch your what? Dart point. Okay, now in order to fold for the back part, please make sure you fold almost exactly what you folded for the front part. The highest circumference plus what? Divided by 4 plus what? 5 inches. But when folding for the back part, make sure that the back part is what? 1 inch longer than the what? Front part. Every other thing remains the same, but make sure it is what? 1 inch longer than the front part. So after you finish doing that, as you can see, that part is called the what? The waist effect part. Okay, now look at it. Next thing you are going to do is to do what? After you finish folding, is to do what? Mark out your 2 inches allowance. Now this 2 inches allowance is for the what? Is for the what? Zip and what? The slit part of the skate. This is called the what? Center back of the skate. Now after you finish marking it out, now mark out 1 inch allowance on top. As you can see, it's called for the what? It's called the what? The waist effect line. Okay, now after you are done marking out all these lines, next thing you are going to do is to do what? Take your front part and place it on top of this place like this. Are you seeing it? 1 inch above and what? 2 inch by the side. Okay, after you are done placing it like this, take your pin and do what? Office pin and do what? Hold them together. Okay, so that it will not shift. Now next thing you are going to do is to do what? Apply the what? Back waist effect. Now look at the back waist effect here. From here, make sure you connect to this very side. Please, while connecting this back waist effect, please make sure that the sides, the both of the whether front or back, make sure that they are equal. The only place that you are going to step down with 1 inch lower and you're going to step up with 1 inch is at the what? At the center part. Do you understand what I mean? Now look at it. The front part you step down by what? 1 inch below, while the back part you stepped up by what? 1 inch above. Please, like I said, this waist effect helps us to avoid the what? The folding in front, especially the front waist effect. While the back helps our while the back helps to cover our what? Buttocks. You understand? So that is what the back does. It helps to cover the what? The buttocks very, very well. Okay, so next thing you are going to do is to do what? Cut it out. Okay, as you can see, after you are done cutting it out, next thing you are going to do is to do what? See, look at what I'm going to do. I'm now going to remove the what? The front waist effect. This is how we're supposed to do it. Okay, now remove it like this. Are you still seeing both the two sides are what? Still equal, please. Okay, now next and final thing we are going to do is to do what? Apply the what? Back dart. So in order to apply the back dart, please make sure you trace the front dart to the back. Look at it. As you can see, I've traced it. Okay, so now we are not done tracing it yet. So all you need to do is to do what? Take your pin and pin it here. When you pin it here, next thing you are going to do is to do what? From here, are you seeing it? Lift it up, then mark it towards here. Are you seeing it? So next thing you are going to do is to do what? Mark out the what? Back dart. Look at it here. Are you seeing it? Okay, in order to fully form the dart, look at it. From here, mark out your what? Half inch, and from here, mark out your what? Half inch. Then use your rule and do what? Connect to the what? That point. Okay, so please use the same tracing method to duplicate it at the back. You understand? So that is how we do it. Even this particular dart, if you still want to duplicate it at this very side, you still use your pin and do what? Duplicate it and what? Form the dart. So this is how to cut a pencil skate. So please, I want you guys to make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you like this video. Please, I beg you in the name of God, make sure you like this video, because the more you like this video, the more others get to see it. And make sure you finally share it to your friends so that they can also enjoy what you guys are enjoying. So thank you very much. Love you.